I'll introduce myself very briefly. I'm Dave Lemie. Are we ready? Is it working? I'm a professor at Clemson University. I'm the moderator here, and my job is to keep things basically on time and to get the speakers up in front of you, because they're the ones that have the important things to tell you today. So I think without further ado, we have Rob Leeds here. Is that correct? And he's online. And we will ask, we'll allow for some Q&A later this morning, because we have 3 presenters. Is that right? Okay. So later on, when we do get to the Q&A point, there's a microphone up here. And since we have online participants in these sessions, you know, we want to make sure they hear your questions and everything. So we'll ask you to step up to the mic at that time. So Rob, if you're ready, then I think you can probably take it away now.
Hello there. I am Rob Leeds, and we're going to talk a little bit about developing a framework to achieve awesome customer service. My cohort in this is Eric Barrett. We are both faculty members here at OSU Extension, and both of us have an agritourism operation ourselves that we try to do the best we can. So, but anyway, we're going to talk about that today. In our handout, we have an awesome customer service handout here, and we talk about customer service from the perspective of preparing, responding, recovering, and improving practices. Today, we're going to focus mostly on preparing, plan, selecting, training, rewarding employees. We're going to focus on that, and you'll have the handout, or you can go to the website right there on the first part. Send me an email, and we can go ahead. We can get you that handout if you don't already have it. So first of all, knowing your business is probably the best way. It is the best way to get your employees all on board. Once again, if you don't know what you're about, it's really tough to convey that message to your staff. So once again, how do you find out about what you want to be? Once again, it comes back to this idea of how do you make people feel? It's not about what you said. It's not about what you did. It's about how you made them feel. So the first thing is, think about, what do I want my business to feel like? And look at that and say, let's look at other service providers that I've worked with over the years. You know, when I walk into a car dealership, when I walk into a store, a Target, Kroger's, whatever, how was I treated? You know, how did I feel? Is that the way I want my customers to feel? The best way to analyze your own business is start with your own experiences. The second thing I want to kind of clue you in on as we go to is, when people come into your business, agritourism operations, they have a stereotype about what your business is all about. When you think of an agritourism business, what do you think of? What comes to mind? What are you expecting? Some things really dictate this. If you're a low-cost provider, you're a lower entry fee, they're going to have different expectations than if you have a higher, if they're paying more to get into your operation. They expect certain things. It may be where your business is located. If you're located next to a high-end development versus a rural area, different expectations. So think about, what is the stereotype of my operation? What is the customer impression that I want to put out there? You know, in our case, we have markets that are next to a large city. They have a certain expectations of the facilities. They're going to want, they're more likely to want, something more than porta pots. They may want something that's a little more custom, a little more beautified than you would expect, maybe in a different part of Ohio. So a little bit different. Know your customers, know what they expect, and that way you can really get a firm idea of what your operation's all about, or what it should be, to meet the goals that you have for your business. Okay, let's talk about customer service, knowing your product. Once again, you've looked at it and you said, this is what I want to be. Now let's really talk about, what is our product. When we talk about great customer service, The surveys out there, 80% of the business said, yes, I deliver great customer service. But when they asked the customers, only 8% said, yes, I get great customer service. Now, once again, why the difference? It's not because they're not trying to deliver customer service. It's the difference in perception between what the business thinks is great customer service and what the customers really want. So the idea is to really deliver customer service, you got to know what your customers want. What are their expectations? That goes back to this idea of stereotypes coming in. What do they expect? They really set the bar for what the expectations are for great customer service. And really, it is a major economic benefit to you. Because remember, when you talk about advertising, you talk about bringing people in, that word of mouth, either person to person or through social media or whatever it is a major economic value to your business. Positively, negatively, it affects either way. So once again, be on the same page with your customers. And how we like to do it is we worked a little bit through Disney Institute, and they talk about the 4 keys, the idea of their operation, and they have safety, courtesy, show, efficiency. So all the decisions that they make going through that have to pass this criteria. First of all, is it safe? Is it courteous to our people? Does it enhance the show? Is it efficient? But when you look at that, safety comes first, and then courtesy, show, and efficiencies last. So once then, they will give up some efficiencies to make sure that their operation is courteous. They will give up some efficiency to make sure it's safe. Those are the kind of points you have to go through, and that way your employees know what's important to you. Because when we'll talk a little bit more about in a little bit, but this idea of empowering your employees. I put up, we've been doing some survey work, and we'll talk about that as we go on. But we were doing some case study work with this too, and we have one farm that's set up their keys. This is what they've decided. Their keys are safety. It's a priority in every decision and never will be sacrificed. Once again, safety is key for this operation. Second, courtesy to our guests, our coworkers, our partners, and our community. And what I thought was interesting about this was the idea of courtesy to your community. You think guests, you think coworkers, partners, yes, but the community. The idea was being, agritourism is a new and evolving industry. We got to make sure that we bring our community along with it. I mean, the whole idea is our community better because we're a part of it? That's some of the things that they're asking. Then they talk about brand. Be true to yourself. The idea of, we live here, we work here, we don't go home afterwards. It's a 7-day a week. It's not a 9 to 5. We're 24/7. And we want to make sure that we are true to ourselves and what we're about. Once again, if you're going to work every day, working, long hours, it's hard to be something you're not. And then the last thing is they look at too, much like Disney, is efficiency. They want events to run smoothly, avoid unnecessary convenience for their guests, their coworkers, their partners, and their community. Once again, efficiency is much broader than just being efficient with money or just being efficient with time. It's the idea of looking at your coworkers. Am I doing the best for them? Am I working with the community? But when you talk about those keys like that and the way this operation does, it's much easier to convey that to your employees that you're working with. So once again, know yourself, know your business before you even start talking about awesome customer service with your employees. So once again, when you have those keys, you'll have a good idea of what your culture is. An experience occurs when a company intentionally, keyword intentionally, it's not haphazard, it's intentional, uses service as a stage and the goods as props to engage individuals in a way that creates a memorable event. Once again, intentional. It's about services, goods working together. It's not about low-cost provider like a Walmart and goods only. It's the idea of setting the stage and once again, knowing what your culture is as you go through. Let's talk a little bit about hiring. Once again, you want to hire people that reflect the ethic and the values of your company. We can get a lot of people that'll come out for the paycheck. It's getting harder and harder, to be honest with you, since COVID. But the idea is we need to get employees that really reflect our values. So first thing is, with our survey, we ask, how do people recruit and select employees? Not real surprising. Some of it's a little bit surprising, but we surveyed Ohio agritourism operators. We had a database about 300. I think we got about a 20% return rate, and we're still working on it too. And we found that 40%, the highest amount, recruits by word of mouth. No big surprise there. 20% uses social media, Facebook being the largest one. No surprise there at all. What I did find a little bit surprising was that greater than 54% of our operators were really not knowledgeable about Ohio labor laws, or didn't feel like they were knowledgeable about Ohio labor laws. Once again, from a legal standpoint, from a sustainability in your business standpoint, it's very important that we have a knowledge of what is expected of us as far as the labor laws, especially in the states you live in. So once again, when you're starting out, making sure that you know where you're going to recruit and then what kind of employees that you need to hire. And in that vein too is, when you look at it, are we hiring people because of their skills, or are we hiring people because of their behaviors? Really, you need to be considering both. You want people, ideally you get someone that's a great work ethic and is friendly to the customers and smiles all the time and has a tremendous amount of skills, knows how to drive a tractor or to run a zip line or whatever it may be. But the idea is they know both. But when you interview employees, think to yourself, which will service me the most? Do I want to, if I have to give up something, do I want something that's not, someone that's not quite as highly skilled but have this great attitude and behaviors? Or do I look at it and say, well, I really, really need those skills, behaviors I can kind of deal with too. And it varies by the position you're hiring for, right? If you want a medical professional, you want someone that's highly skilled. If their bedside manner's a little bit off, not a big deal. You're still here. They did a great job with you. But if you're hiring someone to, run a cash register or something of that nature, drive a tractor, can you teach them how to run a cash register? But it's hard to teach them to have that smiling face and the great personality. Those types of things you have to look at and say, is this what I need right now for this position? So once again, employee selection is very critical. In most of our businesses, if we start penciling it out, what percent of your total expenditures is for labor? I think most of us would agree that that's going to be a fairly high percentage as we go in. So once again, it's really not advantageous to us to try to skip on employee selection and hiring. Here's a good example I like to bring up too. The idea is, when you hire employees, you need them on. If they're servicing the customer, here on the left, my left, you have a mother-daughter team. And you can see that the daughter's not overly pleased with the mother. Once again, how does that reflect from a customer service standpoint? And on the other side, we have a nice older lady that's smiling, proud of her product, well-dressed, nice hat, well-presented. How does that affect the perception of the customers? Changes quite a bit as you go through. Once again, in that case, you'd want someone maybe that has a little more behavior. Maybe if they don't know exactly what the plants are, it's not a big deal because they're very personable. Once again, then when you're hiring those two, think about those interactions and how they set a tone. And then once again, in this workbook, we ask you to take a look at what happened and then what was the customer's impression. Did they do what we needed to do? Did this leave a positive impression? Once again, when you look at that, then you can say, well, how can we make it better? Let's talk a little bit about training. I am really excited that in our survey work, we're finding people that find training a huge benefit. Our employees are very important to us too. This is one thing I like to bring up too, is let me get all the way down through here. 96% of our customers, unhappy customers, will never complain. 90% will never come back. 54 to 70% will come back if the problem is resolved quickly. 97%. So us as owners, we may never know that a customer is unhappy because they didn't complain to us. We don't know. We can't make it better. That's why it's important to have those frontline employees, because they're the ones interacting with the customers. They know when they're unhappy. We need to teach them to read body language, to look at it and say, hey, are you happy, or we come back? That way we'll have an idea and they can help solve it. That's why employee training is so critical. We need to make sure that our employees recognize customers, deal with customers as they come, because we may never come in contact with them. We don't even hear about it until they just don't come back. In our survey work, what we found is that almost 60% of our people use outside trainers, mostly for safety training. Safety training was also the highest specified training need that they had. Interesting part was, going back to this idea of knowing your culture and having things intentionally, over 72% of our people surveyed have no employee handbook. So nothing they can refer back to, or it needs improving. So once again, if you're an educator out there, or you're someone working with your market, make sure that you have an employee handbook that you can refer back to, because once again, even from a legal standpoint, a lot of the stuff that's in here are the stuff that we have to abide by with our employees. So I found that interesting that there was that much need for employee handbooks, and I shouldn't be that surprised because I get a lot of questions about it. Once again, customer service is intentional. It's not spontaneous. It's not a plan. That's why that handbook is so important. Spontaneity is great, but it has to be done in a scripted manner. We can't be trying to give different answers to different people. The plan has to be specific to the business too. When you're working on a handbook, making sure that plan, how you're going to deal with things, is very specific to the business of yours. Once again, going back to what are your values, what do you want your brand to look like? Touch points are everywhere. I think we all know that. Answering the phone, dealing with lines, social media responses. These are things we can think about ahead of time. Dealing with negative events, all this stuff can be put into a handbook and talked about. The big one is number 5, really. All of our employees get those questions. Tell me about the story of the farm. Once again, that's bringing those customers in and making them part of the operation. If they can have a good story about how the farming operation started, why do we grow, maybe why are we not organic, how often do we spray, et cetera, et cetera. Those kind of things really bring our clientele closer to us if we can help have our employees, carry that for us. Once again, just a quick picture of, here's a lady doing a nice job selling wool, and then a gentleman, a little bit different. What's the touch points? How does it feel different between those two? When we train too, we talk a lot about, adhering to the plan. What do we want to do? Make sure that the policies, make sure they know how to explain them. If you have an employee that doesn't know the policies or can't explain it well to customers, then you have a little bit more problem when you're dealing with people. Yes, the little things matter. Make sure that you can, give away, empower your employees to do some things to make life better for your customers. And once again, yes, the big things do matter. Safety matters. That's a big thing, and that should be high on everyone's list. Empowering your employees, give them an opportunity to be day makers. Here's another page from our handbook. But in our operation, we will give each of our employees tokens that they can give people that aren't having a good day, or maybe having a great day and helping someone to do something a little bit better, making someone else's. The little tokens are nothing more than just free kettle corn, or maybe a free ice cream cone or something like that. Something little, but they have it right in their pocket, and they know if they see a customer doing a good job or having a bad day for some reason, maybe the child's too too small to go on a zip line or jump on the jumping pellet, they can give them to it. Once again, be day makers. Empower them to do that. Empowering your employees to make decisions quicker is key because once again, we talked about it. Some people don't complain. They just leave. Make a decision. Go with it. The bottom line is our managers really need to be consistent with the idea of empower employees. We don't want our employees to make a decision, make it happen, and then all of a sudden they're getting chastised by a manager. Be consistent. Be positive. Going back to our survey again, we found that Ohio agritourism operations, about 100% of them have some kind of a financial incentive to keep good trained employees. 80% of them actually had an opportunity for the employees to grow within the business. This idea was, you do us a good job and we can move you up in the company. We can do something, this middle management. And that I was a little surprised it was higher that high. And then a little over 79% have intentional opportunities for employees to engage with our employees, and 54% of those are weekly. So anyway, what can you learn from this? How can you recover? Sorry, my time is up, but I appreciate your attention and I wish you all good luck.
So I'm going to give you a few logistical details here, which I think will be helpful to you. So some of these sessions where the person's not here today are actually pre-recorded. I even forgot that when we started this session that was pre-recorded. So the way to interact with that speaker is through the Whova app, the Q&A. You can ask some questions out there. Apparently that's going to be live for like 3 months. So you can interact with the speakers if they have something you want to follow up with. So I'm going to go ahead and ask our next speaker to come on up while we're loading up her presentation. And it's Dani Baker. And she recognizes the PowerPoint that's up there as her own, which is always a good thing. So I'm going to let her introduce herself in more detail and let her get right to the task of presenting.
Do I just say next screen when I'm ready, or next?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
You can advance her slides right over there, or we can give you.
Okay. I can control it myself.
There you go. And
All
there's
right.
a-
Okay.
Yeah, there's a
Just
plus
show me
and
what
minus.
to press.
Exactly.
I don't need a pointer because I figured out
Okay.
how to just tell people upper left and stuff like that. So what do I press to move it?
It's not that one.
Oh, hold on, it might be.
Can you advance them from there if we can't figure this out? Okay, I'll play with this in the meantime.
Okay. All right. Can we go to the first slide again, please? Thank you. All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming. You know the title. So we have a next slide, please. I'm sorry. Can you hear me now? Good. I guess I can take this off. Yes, good. Thank you. Okay, so we have a certified organic farm on Wellesley Island, which is an island in the middle of the St. Lawrence River. It's an American island and it's interstate access. I-81 goes to Wellesley and on to Canada. We started the farm in 2006. Next slide. And we quite diversified. We have beef cattle, we have beef meat goats, we have some pigs, we have annual vegetables, we have a few chickens and ducks. And next slide. And we do different kinds of agritourism ventures. So we have a few rustic campsites on our farm. We also give tours. We host volunteers, which is the subject of this talk, year round. And we do events in our edible forest. Next. So 7 years into the farm, I got inspired by Cooperative Extension Cornell, and I just started to plant and plan an edible forest. And that's another growing agritourism enterprise. We do UPIC tours, workshops, and events there. Next. And I wrote a book.
We can't see the slides online.
Okay, this book was published by Chelsea Green this May, and it's a back, please. Back. Back, back. Good. Forward. Good. Great. Okay. Okay. And it's a guide for anyone to plant an edible forest. It's a very user-friendly guide. Next slide. And they're for sale outside. Okay. Next slide. Okay. And there's a bunch of brochures also outside. You're welcome to help yourself too about our farm and about the edible forest. So when we started the farm, we wrote a mission statement, and our mission statement states, our vision is to build an ecologically, economically, and socially sustainable farm diversified in plant and animal life that provides us with a reasonable living, our community with healthy, wholesome food, the environment with a good neighbor, and provides educational opportunities for as many people as possible about how to produce organic, sustainable, local, and healthy food. So this presentation is really focused on the educational opportunities aspect. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so we draw our volunteers and interns from colleges, from the WOOF website. Are you familiar with that? Wildwood of Opportunities on Organic Farms. We have a listing there, from local residents, and also we have a nearby Army base. And there's actually the local cooperative extension has a program where for soldiers aging out or leaving the Army, they can actually apprentice themselves on various farms to get a feeling about whether they want to continue in an agricultural field after they leave the Army. Next. Next, please. Okay, yeah, you're fine. Well, I can talk about colleges in the meantime. Back before Handshake, which I can't deal with, I used to deal just with the placement offices of various colleges, and they were extremely helpful to me in locating potential interns. We have a wonderful school near us, Clarkson University, and also SUNY ESF, the environmental school of Syracuse University. And the students at both these places are very task-oriented, hands-on people, and they've made wonderful interns for us over the years. We've also gotten a lot of volunteers through WOOF from all over the world, Singapore, Switzerland, South America, just wonderful opportunity for us to meet people from everywhere and for them to experience a little bit of culture of the United States. Local residents, the wife of an officer at the base who was deployed, had 3 preschool children, and she needed a respite from her kids. And she came to me, she said, I've got a black thumb, but I want to learn how to garden. So she came, she put her kids in daycare, and she came once a week for a year and a half. So she actually went through 2 seasons, and her black thumb turned into a green thumb. And then they were transferred to Georgia, where they bought a new house that had no landscaping. And she landscaped the entire place with edibles. And when they had to leave in 2 years, it sold before the other newer houses around because of the landscaping. So that's just one success story. Nearby Army base, let me talk about that. So we had, I think he was a captain. He was leaving the service after 10 years, and he wanted to be a farmer. He came on Saturdays, his day off, and worked with my partner, Dave, learning about all the different tasks that he needed to, you need to learn to manage a farm. And his wife was from New Hampshire, and they moved there, bought some land, and he started farming. He had pigs and he had berries, and then he started. He took a master's program at UVM at New Hampshire University, and he liked it so much he went on to get a PhD. So that's just another little success story. Okay, is that my next slide? Okay, great. So this is just our brochure. They're out there too. You can pick up a copy. This is part of our farm brochure, where we have 6 columns on the brochure, but the left-hand one talks about organic volunteering and interning. So anyone who picks it up who might be interested can get an idea of what we're offering and what they would get out of the experience. Next slide. Next slide, please. Any questions while I'm waiting? Oh, that's not even my thing. Any questions while I'm waiting? No? Okay. Yes. No. We give our volunteers, we have opportunity for them to live in. So we expect 6 hours of work a day for six days a week. And we give them room and board, all the food is provided. Plus, sometimes we give them some, if they don't have a car, we'll drive them around to some local events. It's a summer tourist area where we live. So there's lots of things going on. And, in the summer in particular, the days are very long. They're like 14, 16 hours long. So if they work for 6 hours, they have the rest of the day for themselves. There's swimming and hiking and boating 1 mile down the road in the state park in the St. Lawrence River. And so they have a wonderful, we just had 2 interns from New York City. They're leaving today. They're both graduate students at NYU. They're taking a joint degree, social work and public health, and they wanted to come for one last hurrah before classes start. And they've been loving swimming in the river and just recreating locally. And they've been actually one of them. So I wrote the book, right? And I pitched a television show to our local, this is all agritourism, right? To our local WPBS station about the edible forest type of gardening. And they're very interested. And they wanted me to develop some promos because we have to raise money to pay for the show. So we're having dinner the first night they arrived. And I mentioned this project. And I said, could either one, they're young women, like in their 20s. I said, can either of you, take your camera and take some videos for me? And one of them goes, oh, I was a videographer at a New York City radio station. Sure, I'd love to do it. So she did 3 so professional 5-minute videos in the few days. Yeah, I'm so excited. Okay, can we get it back? Yes. Pardon me? The forest garden. So it's modeled after Forest Edge, and it's a landscape planting for fruits, nuts, berries, herbs, edible, perennial it's all perennial vegetables, where you're using all the vertical layers, because in a forest edge, you have your tall trees, your short trees, you have everything. Plus, you build in through other plants all the nutrients that your fruit-bearing plants, your food-bearing plants need, plus pest protection. You attract pollinators. So it's a perennial planting, and you build in all these support services, including attracting all kinds of wildlife to do service for you, like eating bugs and eating rodents and things like that. And so your labor actually reduces going forward. Very different from an annual vegetable garden where your labor never changes year after year. And I, being of the age I am, I was very anxious to transition from annual vegetables into something that was a little easier on my body. Okay, so thank you. I guess. Can you go back one, or do you have trouble? Yes, that was the right slide. Go forward. Did I answer your question? That's just an overview. The book tells you a lot more about it. Okay, next slide, please. Perfect. So these are just some shots of some volunteers. These 2 stayed for a good month in the winter. So we have chores all year round. The top one, this crew here, this is amazing. So during the first year of COVID, a lot of college students didn't want to pay private tuition to go to school online. So that fall, I was so lucky to have, I call them my Ivy League crew. One of them was from Princeton. One of them was from Columbia. One of them was from Cornell, and one of them was from MIT. And they didn't know each other before they came, but they all came for 2 to 3 months in the fall. And they were just a wonderful crew. They were all going to be juniors in college the following year. And it just so happened I was writing my book at the time, and one of them did my illustrations. One of them was did my CAD drawings. He was an architecture student at Cornell. One of them was an urban studies major and an English minor at MIT. And she pre-edited my book before I sent it to the publisher. And then the fellow from Princeton was really good with technology. So he helped me with all my frustration with my computer. So they were just a fabulous crew, and they've all been back. They've all revisited. One of them revisited twice, and she's from California, the MIT young woman, and I'm sure I'll see them all again. So it's just a wonderful way to form relationships with young people. And, you know, I'm of the age, if you know Erickson's stages of human development, I'm of the age where I'm in the generativity stage. So I want to pass on all of the wisdom that I've acquired in my life, and this gives me a wonderful opportunity to do it. Next slide. Okay, so I just want to point out a couple of things about my quote announcement, my volunteer announcement. So you want to talk about the experience. That's what people are looking for. So I kind of emphasize that. Motivated individuals for a diverse and enlightening experience in the first line. And then, you know, describe the farm, it's highly diversified. Talk about regenerative perennial agriculture. That's the new buzzword. I'm sure there'll be another one in a few years, but that's the edible forest. So I'm listing the different ways they could concentrate if they have a specific interest in terms of the chores and the learning on our farm. There's animals, there's the edible forest, there's annual vegetables. And then, of course, every farm has business, right, is a business. So marketing people are wonderful to have. They can really help with posters for events or, you know, online digital stuff. And then we do provide, you know, and we also want our volunteers to, you know, concentrate on where their interests are. So if they're not interested in animals, we don't make them deal with the animals, and vice versa. Okay, let's move on. So I know my time is limited. So here's just, you know, a few more shots. Trying to remember, I'm sure this fellow in the middle was not from the US. Yeah, next shot. Okay, really important to screen volunteers. We learned this the hard way. We didn't screen a young man once, and he turned out to have some issues that made it very uncomfortable for us to have him in our house. So what I do is I insist on a phone interview with any potential volunteer, and we explain what the experience will be like. And if they're close enough to actually come to the farm, we'll give them a tour. But we also need to find out any special needs, dietary, allergies. We had a young man who actually was allergic to nuts, and I knew it. But one day he decided to eat a cookie that wasn't well labeled, and he ended up in the ER. So it's really important, you know, to find out if they have any specific health problems that we as hosts need to know about. Areas of interest and motivation, and assessing personality fit. This is super important. My partner's a little more easygoing than I am, but they are in my house. So you know, just the questions they asked. Like, we had one young man who wanted to know if his room would be air conditioned and if there was a mall nearby. Do you think we accepted him? Okay. Okay. And then there was a woman who just emailed me recently through Woof, and she said, I'm really excited about spending time with like-minded young people. Well, I wasn't sure I would have anyone else at the time besides her. So I emailed her back that I couldn't guarantee, you know, that she would have, you know, like-minded people around, because if that was her motivation, then she wouldn't be happy. So, you know, that kind of thing. Answer any questions. And then if I feel they're suitable, we'll determine the dates of visit. And I mean, when I'm desperate for help, I figure if they only want to stay a week, I can deal with anything in a week. Right. So, you know, like these two young women from New York City, although they turn out to be wonderful. Okay, next slide. So just, you know, we do have baby goats in the spring, and that's a big incentive for people. And, you know, if we're harvesting fowl, if the volunteers want to participate, they can. Next. Success stories. Okay, I told you about the mother of three. I told you about international exposure. I told you about my Ivy League college crew. And engineer turned farmer. So we had one of our apprentices was a mid-30s guy who had worked as an engineer, and he was mainly doing CAD in front of a computer all day long. And he wasn't happy. He came to the farm, he spent 6 weeks, and he went on from there to apprentice himself at other farms. And to my knowledge, he's doing that now for a living, because he told me that he always was happy when he had his hands in the dirt, but not in front of a computer. So that was another success story. We've had lots of wonderful stories. So these guys are building a hugelkultur. Well, no, they're building a hugelkultur mound. These guys are shoveling shit, putting in fence posts, and watching my partner use the post pounder. Next. Okay, challenges and limitations. Supervision. Supervision can be extremely time consuming with volunteers. And imprecision of language. Many people will not sense ambiguity in a verbal communication, and so they won't ask a clarifying question, and then they'll go on to do what they think I meant. And it's not always what I meant. I'll get to that pros and cons of initiative in a second. Sometimes young people are having issues with one of their parents, be it their mother or their father, and they're living in my house, and all of a sudden I am the parent. I've had issues with that, with one young woman, and then with a young man who he was just acting out right and left. He was 17. This is not one that I screened. That's how I learned. I have to talk to them myself. So he was 17, and he kept acting out. Like he was moving the chicken tractor, and he picked it up and let him run away. Stuff like that. So one morning I'm out in the field, and I started getting chest pains. Like it was so stressful for me to have him. And it was like around 10 in the morning, and I went back and I said, I need to talk to you. And I said, if you were an employee, I'd be firing you. And he goes, he started crying, and he said, oh, I need to learn to work. That's why I came here, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. So I gave him the job of a painting job that he did for the rest of the time. And I'd go over and I'd say, you missed this spot, you missed this spot. But he really did a good job. And this was 15 years ago, and it still exists, the painting job, and it's exposed to the outdoors. So anyway, but you really, and then, so parental projections, and then pros and cons of initiative. It's nice if someone wants to take initiative, but please tell me before you do it. So one day, this is early on, we had a young woman from Barcelona. She came for a month of August. She wanted an English immersion experience. So in fact, we're still in touch. I mean, this one was years and years ago. I visited her in France when she was in graduate school. She visited me when I went to Martin Crawford's farm in England. Then she saved her money. She brought her mother to my farm, and for a trip to the US. And now she's married. She has a child, and I'm sure I'll see her again someday. Irina. Anyway, so Irina, I taught her how to plant lettuce. I told her, I showed her, I watched her do it, and then I left her on her own. And I came back and I saw the row of lettuce that looked perfect. A few hours later, they were all dead. I said, Irina, what did you do? And she showed me. She took each seedling with the bare roots, and she laid it on the ground in the hot sun till she had a dozen. And she thought this was more efficient, right? And then she planted them. So she killed the roots. So anyway, that's an example of initiative being a little, not helpful. Okay, and then length of stay unpredictable. Most volunteers will say we're going to stay from this date to this date, but I'll tell you, 9 times out of the 10, they leave early. So you have to kind of expect that. And an example was we had a couple who were coming for 2.5 months, and I think they were having issues with each other, and they ended up leaving before 2 weeks was up. And we had planned all these projects for them for this summer. And then they left abruptly, and then we didn't have any help. So Dave and I decided we're not going to plan anything for our volunteers. We're going to arrange the farm so we can manage everything ourselves. And if we have volunteers, that's like gravy. We can get extra done, but we're not going to rely on them to do important things. I thought I deleted that second parental projection. So anyway. Okay. All right. I'm done. Okay, I will wrap it up. Okay, an immature judgment is another problem with younger people. Usually if they're in their 20s, they've been on their own for a while and their judgment's better, but college kids sometimes, not always, but sometimes. Anyway, next. Okay, just some more pictures of all the fun that our volunteers have on our farm. Next. And that's it. All right, thank you. That's fine. Are there any, can I take a couple questions if there are them? No. No. Okay. I'm right outside.
Find each other in the hallways, and those of you who are online, if you have questions for Dani, then of course use the Huba app and send your questions in there. Out of courtesy to everyone that's here, since we are at the noon hour, and I don't think that schedule is going to change. If you feel like you want to go to the lunch session now, I'll give you like 30 seconds to maybe kind of do that. And then it's, yeah, I think hour and a half. I think there's a speaker there. So, but Melissa's here. So why don't we have her come and give her talk? But over the next couple minutes or so, if you decide to move out, we will not think that's discourteous at all. So come forward.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for the extra time that you're gonna share. I wasn't sure I was gonna be here because my voice has been on and off. So I'll try to be efficient with our time and provide information that you can take home and use. So our theme today, I was like thinking how much it has in common with the first presentation we see, because it was about customer service and about culture. So I think we're gonna deep into that. If you can do next. And I'm gonna talk about today about the value of hospitality in the farm culture. So next, please. And I wanna introduce you, next slide, please. Yeah. So I want to introduce you to our farm. I come from Ananda Gardens, Vermont Wellness Farm. This is a farm in Montpelier, Vermont. And we grow mostly vegetables. We serve 150 families. We have a farm stand. We have a model of delivering products. And we have very naturally engaged into, I don't know what's going on with the slides. Are they coming? Yeah, they're coming. Okay. So yes, I said we naturally being grounding into agriculture because people is more and more coming to visit us, and this has like make us get into the agriculture experience. We serve we have a farm stand, so every Thursday and Friday people come to our farm, and we host almost 100 families weekly. And then we also offer tours, visits. People come to our farm. It's like a very unique place because it's flat, so it's pretty walkable for all age stages. And we also do farm dinners, and in those farm dinners, we try to promote what we do, our mission and our vision. Our story, Patrick is mostly the farmer. I'm a health coach. I'm all about wellness, and I see how a farm can be a place where people can learn, get inspired, and relate to the food in a different way. So that's what it's been infusing our mission and our vision. And as many of you, I'm just guessing, I heard my husband, the farmer, it's somewhere, and our business is a family business. So through the years, we're in business almost for 8 years, not that much, but we've been trying to grow our business as a persona separate from the farm itself, because it can be too taxating for the partnership. So that has developed Ananda Gardens as this third. I don't work for Patrick. Patrick doesn't work for me. The employees don't work for us. We all work for Ananda Gardens, and this project is what we're like moving forward. So that infused all the agriculture that we do. We have a living culture. Our vision is to live in wellness, grow and prosper in connection with nature. Our mission is to provide healthy food and wellness to our community. And then, as many business, I guess we all get into these first parts, which are the vision, the mission, but then few of us, and it was a mistake from us too at the beginning of our journey, to develop the values. And the values are super important because those values are going to become in your day-by-day behaviors that then become standards. We have these because these are important for us, but also as part of this, and it comes into happiness for us, is developing and including hospitality, because once we became an agritourism farm, a farm that offers agritouristic experience, then we need to include the hospitality as part of the way we do here and the way we are here. So part of that process of developing the standards, the behaviors, have come to mimic and also get to know more about the hospitality industry. And we like pretty much the Dani Mayer's virtuous cycles of enlightened hospitality, because it has gave us a clarity on our priorities. And this is very important. And somebody in the WAVA app asked a question that I've been cooking to respond, which is why you don't base your culture in your thinking of your guests, instead of like building your culture and then provide that culture to your guests. Somebody asked that. Super great question. And I was thinking that when you think about marketing, yes, you have to develop your marketing strategy thinking like if you were one of your customers. But when it comes to your culture, you have to think about yourself. You have to think of who you are, because the culture is not something that you want to be. It's something it's who you are, you know, it's what it's valuable for you. Your values, for example, it's something that will make you choose to do business or not. For example, part of our values is that we are a whole food plant-based farm. That means that we don't raise animals, we don't promote dairy and meat, and this is who we are, no judgment out there, right? But when it comes to partnering, we have partners that sell meat, and they invite us to their events, and they want us to have like a I don't know, something that says that this is what comes from Ananda Gardens. We will sell to them. We love them out there. We want them to thrive, but we won't bring our brand because that's something that we don't support. So your values and when you have that clarity on that, will make you choose not to have business or not to do certain things, because that's not who Ananda Gardens is. That's not who your business is. So our priorities come first, ourselves and each other, which is what we call the family crew. And it's interesting. Why doesn't the customer come first? Well, because the customer, yes, you want to think that the customer is always right, but not when you have a racist customer, not when you have a rude customer, not when you have to protect your employees, not when you have a misogynist customer. So you have to protect your people. You have to have that clarity that your crew comes first. And then the CSA members and the guests, of course, are like part of our priorities. Our community, our providers. And then the Ananda Garden family, which is the stakeholder. So we don't take the decisions on earning more money, basically. We take the decisions first, thinking of these priorities. Next one. So to lead this culture, these values, to be true to what we need, we have to have behaviors and like things that actually are the proof that we want to be happy, that we want to be mindful, that we want to be an efficient team. So part of it is that we have regular meetings one-on-one with our team. We have benefits, like we have to have a competitive salary. You all know here that when I was like planning this conference before, like this was that, remember that the conference was going to be 2 years ago. So we didn't have the problem of hiring people that we have right now. It is so hard. So I'm going to tell you an anecdote. We overpass our priorities, we overpass our values, and we hire people because that's the people that show up. We knew that they didn't have the profile. In mid of the season, all that food ready to be harvested, and we had 2 people with mental health crisis. And that was it, and things have been very complicated since then. So so reflecting on that, I wish I would have stick to my values and to the profile of person that I want, that has this hospitality vibe, service ethic, and keep on looking, take that people, but keep on looking, So these are parts of the perks that we offer. Also a 30-minute rest policy. So people, we pay the lunch, but we don't pay the 30 minutes because sometimes they need a rest, especially climate crisis. Summers get hotter, so that is important. And also as being a wellness farm, it's important. We try to match them with like coaches that are on training, so they have opportunities to also improve their own wellness in their life. Yeah. So for us, behaviors become standards. This is the way we do things. This is who we are. And being hospitable, it's being welcoming. We, for example, keep the farm clean. We don't clean when the customers are going to come. We keep it clean. We try to be accessible for different range of motions. We try to be punctual so people know that the activity is going to start on time, always reliable, and we are open to connect and share. So we try also to find people that would be in touch with the customers, that are people who would be not trying, don't talk to me, but people who would be eager to talk and greet people. Giving and receiving feedback, and our team is very important because of the communication. Just what our last presenter, I don't remember anymore, what she said, that communication is tricky. So that's something that we need to be respectful, be reliable, be friendly, have a smile, and especially love what you do. That's a key. So how do we define hospitality? Well, hospitality is the relationship between visitors and hosts. And where visitors feel welcome and received with a welcoming service ethic. So I want to ask you, and you don't have to respond to me now, but in your own endeavor, what is welcoming? What does that welcoming mean for you? Because this is very important. This is such a personal, when it comes to your culture, what it means to you. Because your culture needs to be real, needs to be who you are. If you're serious and you have a very strict ethic of work, well, bring that to your culture. That is important for you. If you're actually more fun and you appreciate fun and the activities you do, bring that to your work. Because when it becomes real, it becomes an experience that people connect. Somebody else also asked me in the WOBA, what were the amenities that are important for making hospitable, a place hospitable. And I was reflecting on that. You know what? It's not the things you have, because you might not have I don't know, a flushing toilet to offer them, and they're asking for a flushing toilet, but it's the way you respond to that. That's what, and the first presenter was saying that people will remember how you make them feel. They won't remember what you don't have or what did you give them per se things. They will remember how you make them feel, and your staff will feel, if they feel happy, authentically happy, because they are valued with a good rate, wage, because you have flexibility with them, because you have a connection with them, then they will authentically reflect that. And that, my friends and fellows, would translate into good marketing, and that will reflect in sales, because people will treasure their experience. They will share what happened in your farm. And let's say you have a wonderful, you have amenities, you have a great display, you have wonderful vegetables and other goods from the farm to offer. But people will remember if employees were yelling at each other, people will remember if you were having an argument or if people wasn't friendly with them. So that's something to keep in mind. And these are just like some pictures of the events we have and we host. We host tours and meals. Please, the other one. Walks into the forest, ceremonies to give things to the motherland. The kids come and harvest from our gardens. And also enjoy the different activities that we have. I just want to share that with you. And thank you for your time. I know we're taking your lunch, but thank you so much.